All right, welcome. Thank you for coming to our launch event for the Zarona VZ8 laser. We have Dr. Jennifer Vaughn here, all the way from Florida, to talk about the fat loss benefits of the VZ8. And then we're gonna have a testimonial, and then I'll talk about my personal experience with it and also the functional medicine benefits that it has. And so Dr. Vaughn is from Orlando, Florida, and she had to rearrange her flights just to get here, and has obviously is dedicated to spreading the word about these things if she comes to the frozen tundra in the middle of winter. So
it is a
without further ado, help me welcome Dr. Vaughn up front.
Well, hello everybody, and as we like to say in Florida, hello y'all. That's how you know I'm from the South. I didn't think I had an accent until I started coming out to these events and realized people from the Midwest don't usually say y'all. So it's nice to meet everyone, and I really hope that tonight is gonna be about some education, hopefully a little bit of fun, some good entertainment with Doc at the end here too, and even a few prizes, and so hopefully get you a little bit excited about the technology. And so we're gonna talk about the Zarona VZ8 laser, which is over here, and at the end of the night, I'm gonna turn it on and you guys can put your hands underneath it and feel it and all of those things. And if you have any questions as we go through this, please feel free, raise your hand, just shout it out. If you need to go to the bathroom, everybody should know where they are by now. They're around the corner and a couple lefts. And if you need to get up and get a drink or get something to eat, please. This is very casual. We want you to be comfortable and enjoy yourselves, okay? Okay, so before we get started talking about anything else, I want to talk a little bit about the science and the technology, because I am a science nerd. That's kind of my background. And I want to talk a little bit about Urconia. And the first thing I'd like everyone to know is that Urconia is a USA-made company. It was founded in 1996 by two best friends. One of them was a bioengineer. He was actually working on the device for pulse oxes, you know, those little things that go on your finger that register your oxygen and your pulse. He was working on the oxygenation part of that. And the other friend had a father who was a paratrooper. And his dad had jumped out of so many planes that he had a lot of back pain. And he was going to a local chiropractor, and the chiropractor was making him feel really good. And they asked him, "Dad, what's different?" And they said, "They're putting this laser on me that's helping me feel better." So lo and behold, the engineer took that laser that had been kind of smuggled in from Europe somewhere, took it into his garage and tore it apart and said, "We can do better than that." And that's how Urconia got started. And it has been around now as a company since 1996. So we're celebrating our 30th year in as a business. And that's a huge thing in the world of low-level laser. And so when I talk about different types of lasers, because that's kind of like a Star Trek term to me growing up, it's like you put something on it, it makes it better. And it really is kind of amazing what these lasers can do. But just so that you know, we have been around since 1996, like I said, and we have what are called FDA clearances for what we do. The laser that we're going to talk about tonight is actually FDA cleared for body contouring and fat loss and circumferential reduction. But we have other lasers that we're studying and that we have on the market and that Dr. Newbern actually has in his office that are cleared for full body pain. We're actually in a study right now, a quadruple blind study for autism. We're studying Alzheimer's. So this company isn't just about putting this light on you and saying it does something. Every study that we do is double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized, and multi-site. And if that doesn't matter to you, that's what they want you to see in the world of medicine or in the medical world to determine that something really does what it says that it does. So when we talk about how much fat loss you can get on average in the person going through the study, we did that at multiple places, and we used what was called a sham or placebo. So our placebo was a similar colored light that wasn't an actual laser light. The other good thing to know about our lasers is that they are what are called class 2 lasers, which means they're non-thermal. So these lasers can't possibly heat up or hurt you. I say you could shine it on a baby's rear end for an hour and it would, you wouldn't want to do that because you don't want to lose their fat, but it wouldn't hurt them. So these lasers work a little bit differently, and we'll go into that some more. But the way that fat loss started, because that's what we're all here to talk about today, and some of the wonderful other benefits that Dr. Newbern's going to talk to you about with the violet colored laser. But it was kind of a happy accident. We didn't go about as a company to try to start studying fat loss. We were actually in a pain reduction study. We had 2 medical doctors in the late 90s who were doing liposuction and breast augmentation. So they were medical doctors, and they were using our lasers after they did the surgery to see if they could reduce pain. And as of 2004, we have an FDA market clearance for pain reduction post-surgery. So that's pretty cool. But what these doctors found was, and this is a little graphic, so if you don't like to look at things, I apologize, but this was fat coming out of the cannula for liposuction when we didn't do laser. And then the female doctor, she said, why don't we do laser pre and post so that we can see if we can get some more pain reduction? Lo and behold, when we put the laser, and this is the original laser that we used, on them, the fat completely changed. So it went from being kind of clumpy, like a piece of chicken fat behind the skin, clumpy and a little bit pink because of the blood that was in it, to being liquefied, melted, if you will, and yellow with very little pink in it, which meant less blood. And they were getting better results with what they were doing in the office. And they said, we've got this non-heating, non-thermal laser that people can't feel at all, that's helping with pain reduction, but hey, it has these really other cool side benefits. So these 2 doctors, they were the doctors in the era, they studied it for multiple years, and then they took their findings to the World Congress of Liposuction in the year 2000, and they stood up in front of a room full of medical doctors, and they said, we have this amazing laser, this non-thermal laser that's gonna melt the fat right off of you. And they got laughed off the stage because the doctor said, well, you can't prove it, we just see the cannula, what's happening there? There were 2 researchers that were in the audience that night that said, we want to take your laser and we want to see underneath a scanning electron microscope what's really happening to the fat. Can we have one of your lasers? And we said, sure, of course. So the first doctor that studied it, researcher, was at the University of Chicago, Dr. John Wolosewicz, and he actually took fat cells, single fat cells, and he put them under a microscope and he applied our zirconia laser to it. And he found that in 3 to 6 minutes that there was this little pore that opened in the fat cell. And the inside contents of the fat cell got a little bit liquid, emulsified, and the fat cell actually drained itself and shrunk like a raisin, kind of like going from a green, big grape to a raisin that was all dried out. And the coolest thing about this was that it didn't kill your fat cells. And we're gonna talk about why that's really important later on. Having healthy fat cells are part of your hormone system. And Dr. Newbern, as a functional medicine doc, he can explain that even more than I can. But having a technology that we can take the garbage out and get those fat cells cleaned out is really, really, really good for the body. This was the control that was done on the fat cells that Dr. Wolosewicz studied. So there was another doctor in Singapore on the other side of the world, and she said, I'm gonna reproduce the study and make sure that it really works. So she said, I'm gonna take clumps of fat cells instead of single fat cells, and I'm gonna see if the same thing happens. So lo and behold, 3 to 6 minutes later, the fat cells would start to dump, and the contents would get released, and the fat cell would collapse and shrink in size, which for us, that's kind of like going on the keto diet and using your fat as fuel without having to go on the keto diet and getting it using that fat up. So I'm a little bit of, like I said, a science nerd, so I wanted to see the video. So would you guys like to see a video of what it looks like? Okay, so this one over here is gonna be the clumps of the fat cells. Let me see if I can, hold on. And I hope I can get it. If I can't, yeah, here we go. All right, so this is what happens with the fat cells, very specifically under zirconia lasers, not LED lights, not thermal lasers with the zirconia lasers. And then this other picture over here is time-lapse photography of a single cell with the pore actually opening so you can see it. Oh, drum roll. That's what happens when you've been up since 3 a.m. So you can see right here. So when you're under this laser and having a treatment and you can't feel anything and you can't see it because you've got on safety glasses and you're wondering what's happening is we're creating these pores in these fat cells so that we can get rid of those inflammatory fats. Okay, so is anybody wondering what happens to the fat? And if it's dangerous and all of the things, what could happen, all of that? Okay. So one of the things to note about the company is that since 1996, when we started, we've never had a single reported side effect to the FDA. So we know that it's very, very, very safe, which is very hard to say in the world of, tools and tech. But what happens to the fat once you get through with the treatment, and the treatment time for this laser is 20 minutes, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But once you get through with the laser's done everything that it's going to do for you. It's going to open that fat pore. It's going to drain the fat into the spaces beside the cells. They're called the interstitial spaces or the extracellular spaces. And then the fat is going to go into the lymphatic system. And Dr. Newburn's going to talk about the lymphatic system here in a little bit. Once it gets into the lymphatic system, it's going to go to the little nodes inside the lymphatics. And your body, your white blood cells, your macrophages are going to break it down into fuel and use it in your body to use the fat as fuel, or you're going to get rid of it as waste. So we have something we call the Zarona shuffle. I don't know if you've seen the Zarona shuffle in your office yet. And it's when you've been under the laser and you have to go run to the bathroom real quick. So you'll either get rid of the excess that you don't use as fuel as urination, defecation, or sweat, okay? Those are the things that you would likely see. And so the goal after you get through with the laser is to make sure that your lymphatic system is properly hydrated and moved. So the lymphatic system is like the river, right? Does anybody have grandkids or kids who've seen the movie Shrek that he lives in a swamp and it's all nasty and green? I live in Florida. If you go by Louisiana, you can see some swamps and they may be healthy, but they sure don't look like it, right? The lymphatic system really needs a lot of hydration in order to move that fat that you're processing through. So Dr. Newburn talks about having a healthy water intake, which is why he gave you guys some water tonight. But the lymphatic system is really important. It does all these things up here. I don't have to go into all of them, but getting rid of foreign invaders, making sure that we process the fat out of the body, removing abnormal tissues from the body. And so the lymphatic system doesn't function like your heart does. So our heart is going to beat without us thinking about it, right? It's got a pump to it. We don't have to think about it at all. But our lymphatic system needs us to move and needs to vibrate in order to flush things out. So you guys live somewhere where you could deal with your lymphatic system a little bit just by shoveling a little snow, little walking. You don't have to be a marathon runner in order to get your lymphatic system moving. But if we sit for 12 hours a day after we do a session with the laser, you're not going to get as maximum results that you want to see. But so a million different ways to clear the fat out of the system, because after the laser is on you, that pore, that temporary pore, is going to stay open for 48 to 72 hours. So for 2 to 3 days, your body's going to be able to clear that out of the system, and your job is to take advantage of it. Okay, so with that, let me introduce you specifically to the VZ8 laser. It is literally the first and only FDA-cleared violet fat loss and circumferential reduction laser on the market. And Dr. Newburn is an early adapter of the technology because he understands. He's been with Zirconia for some time. He has some of our other lasers. He knows how amazing they are. He's going to talk to you about some of those things that we don't have an FDA clearance for, but a lot of the docs that are out in the field are seeing some amazing extra benefits. But we do know that there's no pain, there's no downtime, and there's no known negative side effects to the laser. And let's talk about the data. So all that doesn't matter if it's not going to make any big results happen, right? So in the study that we did, we had a laser that was called a Zarona laser before the VZ8. It was a red laser. And that red laser got some pretty good results. It had, in a 40-minute session, you lost about 3.7 inches between 3 different places in 6 sessions. And that's great. I'd take that any day of the week, and I'll show you what that means in a minute. But when we did the FDA study with the Zarona VZ8, we did the same study. We got more inch loss in half the time. So it means that you guys don't have to be out, after work for hours and hours. And these are the 3 places we measured. We measured at the waist, we measured at the hips, and we measured at the thighs, okay? And we had to do this study without changing someone's diet, without changing their hydration status, without putting them on a vibration plate and making sure their lymphatics were optimized. We don't recommend that, but we have to tell you that we did that because if we didn't, we wouldn't know if it was the laser that was actually making the change or not. If we put you into a sauna afterwards and heated you up, could some of that be sweat? None of that happened in our study. So it was all just the VZ8 laser. And so the results from what we're talking about with the Zarona laser are actual fat loss. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen that blob of fat that's about 5 pounds of fat. This guy over here. That's about equivalent to what you're going to see when you do a 6 sessions, which is the bare minimum that you want to do. And it's an average. On average, the average person lost 3.91 inches of fat in circumference reduction between those 3 locations. And 4 inches of fat is equivalent to 3 liters. So if you guys know what a 2-liter bottle of Coke looks like, okay, so picture a 2-liter bottle of Coke filled up and almost another 1-liter bottle filled up. That was the average results that we got after just 6 sessions with no pain, no downtime. Anybody getting excited except for me? I will tell you, okay, so this is my testimonial. I wear these pants on purpose because they used to be tight on me. So I did 6 sessions with the Zarona in April and May, and I have not regained anything. In between here, here, and here, it was 7 inches total for me in 6 sessions. And I've gone through Christmas and travel and, not being perfect, but trying. And that is after I'm 52 years old. I was a functional medicine person. I took 17 supplements at a time. I did the paleo diet and, all of the things that you need to do. But that hormonal change and life change and all of those things that happen, I'm an apple shape, none of it really made an inroad until I started to do the fat loss laser from Merconia. Once I did that, then all of the good changes that I had seen made a huge difference. For me, it made a difference in my blood work. Again, that's not what we're FDA cleared for, but my personal testimonial is once I was able to take the garbage out and get those inflammatory fat cells a little bit healthier, my whole system changed. So, and I know that we've got some testimonials coming up here too. So why don't we want to kill fat cells? Dr. Newber knows the answer to this. So our fat cells are actually part of our hormone system. They hold on to toxic stuff too. The everyday immunity has to do with how well your white adipose tissue is doing. That's what WAT stands for. Your lipid metabolism changes when you have healthier fat cells. I don't know if anybody's heard of inflammaging before, but inflammaging is that inflammation that happens to us from all of the things that are going on in our world. Again, I think we're going to have some explanation about that in a little bit. Any of those people who have heard of those GLPs, all of those things that are on the market, right? Well, did you know that if you have a healthier white fat cells, that your GLP signaling actually improves? It's actually researched. So lots and lots of really great things that happen when you have healthy fat cells. And we're going to talk about some of the alternatives that are out there on the market, people that have different devices like liposuction, and the pros and cons of those compared to what we're doing with the Zarona. One of the major cons for some of these invasive procedures is actually cost. Some people don't care that it's invasive, that it's going to could potentially cause scarring or rippling or bagging or changes in color or unevenness. The average amount of fat that gets removed in a successful liposuction, at least in the state of Florida, is between 2 to 3 liters of fat. Remember we said 2.7 liters of fat was average with the Zarona. So pretty complementary to that same amount with way less of a cost and no side effects, right? Who wants to have, and again, these are some adverse reactions to liposuction. It does not mean that this is happening every time. Nobody wants to have an abnormal liposuction with, some changes. But most people are really happy with liposuction after a certain amount of time if they don't mind the cost and the pain and all of that. But what can happen with liposuction is that our body, no matter what you do, can regain fat. And when you have removed, because liposuction actually removes the fat, when you actually remove the fat cells, your body's going to grow larger in other places where fat cells haven't been removed. So this was in the New York Times, and it showed this woman, she had her thighs and her hips reduced, so she was happy with her result. But a year later, she had overgrown because her body didn't want to accumulate fat in this area. She had overgrown her arms in that side. So that is something, it redistributes, and people get very unhappy because they don't look like themselves. That can be one of the negative effects along with all of the other things. One of the other products that's out on the market that people say, well, what about red light therapy? Light and, the diodes, aren't they going to be the same thing? No, actually they're not. The LED therapy is light-emitting diodes are going to have a thermal effect, so they're going to heat the tissue up, just like a heat lamp does, and they're going to help your body to sweat. They're going to bring blood flow to the area, and we're not saying that it doesn't do something. It does, but in our studies and our results, laser therapy is about 6 to 7 times more effective. And Dr. Newburn's laser, which is the violet laser, has some really phenomenal indications for use as well beyond the red lights anyways. But yes, so when you look at this picture and you can see the person lights up like they're in a whole red room, that's going to be a scattered light or an incoherent light, which means it's not going to penetrate very well. And when we turn our laser on, you'll see it looks like line beams, very crisp line beams. That's going to help it get to your system better. Any questions so far? All right. So cool sculpting. So anybody heard of cool sculpting? Okay. So people who are looking into fat loss for themselves or body contouring often think that cool sculpting might be a little bit similar to the Zarona laser, but it actually isn't. Cool sculpting freezes fat cells. It scoops the fat up into these little paddles, and I'm going to show you a picture, and it freezes them over an hour. And then over the next 12 weeks, your body is going to process those dying fat cells through the lymphatics, and that's how they get their contouring results. Remember we said we had 3.91 inches change on average with no change to diet or exercise? Cool sculpting's result was 3.2 millimeters or 0.12 inches on average after 12 weeks. So I literally had a lady get up in the middle of one of these and she said, I paid $9,750 and I lost 1/4 inch. We said, yeah, but that's what their results are going to tell you. That's what they told you they would do. So the other thing about cool sculpting is side effects. So if I had to choose anything to tell you to steer away from, this is a woman's abdomen. This is her belly button right here. And this is this lady right here, and she had it scooped up into here. Major potential side effects. Does anybody remember the supermodel Linda Evangelista, dark-haired supermodel from the 90s? Beautiful. She sued Cool Sculpting for $650 million because she had to stop her career after doing Cool Sculpting. It changed her body so much. So this lady right here, on the far left, this was after her Cool Sculpting, and there's something called paradoxical adipose hyperplasia, big fancy word, but see how her abdomen looks like a saddle here, and it looks like there's a spot out of the middle? She had the Cool Sculpting done right across her belly button, and because she couldn't grow the fat in that area, she regrew the fat here. And then this is another one with somebody on their hips. So Cool Sculpting is one of those things that we say we are so grateful to have an alternative here. So as opposed to all of those things, I want to go through and show you some before and after pictures with people who've done the Zarona laser. And so people will ask me, is this a permanent change? Can the fat come back? And I will tell you, anything that you do can make the fat come back in life. There's nothing that is a permanent 100% situation, even if it's Cool Sculpting or liposuction. But if you continue a healthy lifestyle and what the FDA said was a net neutral caloric intake, meaning what you were eating before is what you finished eating and you continue eating, then the results are long lasting. And that's what we've seen, and that's what I've seen, and I even had Christmas. So I'm pretty excited about it. So anything that's on here, the picture, if it doesn't say it's going to be 6 sessions, and we say 6 sessions is a bare minimum. If you have a larger BMI like I do, I would do 6 sessions at a time, take a break, and then do some more because there's no upper limit of safety. So unlike some of these other things, it's completely safe to do more sessions. We had this one lady, and she had a very aggressive goal. I think she had a daughter that was getting married a year later. She did 45 sessions over the year and lost 72 inches. Pretty amazing, right, Doc? So, and you can see here a big change in her belly. And again, she may have some more to go, but this is 6 treatments. 6 treatments at 1 session per week. So you would either do this once a week or twice a week. Do you like once a week or twice a week? Once a week. So if we do it once a week, it gives the body time, I love that, to clear the lymphatics out completely before you go in and do another session. And actually in our studies, that showed that we got almost twice the amount of results when we did that. So this was 9 sessions and 10 inches lost. And you can see a big change in her abdomen there. So the protocol for the Zarona is to get under this laser for 20 minutes, 10 minutes on the front, 10 minutes on the back. We can treat everything below the face, neck, and breast. So a lot of people will start with their abdomen. So it would be the front, and then up higher here, probably around the bra strap. That would be one session. So 10 minutes on the front and 10 minutes on the back. And we do that because we want to reduce the whole circumference. If we were to put it all in the front, in your belly, we might overwhelm those lymphatics and then you might not get as great of contouring. So our FDA study was full circumferential. We can treat the thighs, we can treat the ankles, we can treat the arms. Yes?
For men that put fat on just on their stomach and not their backs, you still recommend?
We still recommend doing circumferential because when you flip over, you're able to get those sides. And again, that's between you and Dr. Newburn. You technically can, but if your lymphatics aren't optimal, then you might not get them cleared out in 72 hours, and the potential is that the fat cell could reabsorb the fat. So, good question though. We also say the next thing to do is appropriate hydration. So, Doc, how many ounces of water do you recommend people are drinking?
Typically half your body weight.
Half your body weight. Yep, perfect. And then you have to become a long distance marathon runner. I'm kidding, you don't. It's a terrible picture. Getting your body moving 10 minutes 3 times a day is fabulous. So whatever that is you do, if you walk back and forth to the laundry machine and take some, your clothes out one piece at a time instead of all at once, you're gonna get some lymphatic stimulation. And optimal eating. So if you can reduce your sugar content a little bit, if you can increase, we're already increasing our hydration. If you can focus more on whole foods, those types of things are going to be really beneficial. So again, the offices that we say, there was no change to diet or exercise and the docs follow that, those people don't see the greatest results. But people who are using this as a tool in the toolbox of all of the things that they're doing to become healthy, it can make a massive change in their life. So thank you guys so much for letting me be here. Does anybody have questions before we bring somebody up to talk about their testimonial? Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So Steph is going to give us her story next. She was the first person to dive in and use the laser, and she's got a story that'll be good for you.
So yes, I'm Steph. Forgive me, I'm a stay-at-home introverted mom, and I'm not very good at public speaking, so I'm going to do my best. Yeah, and please, if I forget things, interrupt me and remind me to say them. But I originally, obviously, when he brought up this laser, I was really excited when I gained weight. Oh, sorry, I'll put this right here. When I gain weight, it's all in my stomach area, and I've actually tried cool sculpting, which I can attest it is super painful, and I did see some results, but it takes a long time and it is so expensive. Like one paddle is $500 and you always have to have 2 paddles. And I mean, this is so much cheaper and so much better. But so I was really excited about, maybe losing some inches. But to rewind a little bit, I started seeing Dr. Newburn about 3.5 years ago because I was having some really serious health issues. I had seen a ton of specialists and no one could help me. And finally, somebody had recommended Dr. Newburn to me. And so I was having a ton of dizziness and vertigo. I had headaches all day long, chronic neck issues. My neck was always getting stuck. I was constantly just in so much pain. Tons of gut issues, brain fog, bad eye issues, just like all sorts of things. And I was just very miserable. I was having a hard time just getting through the day. And so Dr. Newburn helped me a ton. He would give me a lot of relief, but I was so reactive that I would end up, having to go see him quite a bit because he was the only one that was able to give me a little relief. Well, then fast forward to when he gets the laser. We did the first session and I had called him that day because all of the symptoms that I had dealt with kind of all came up right after the laser, which he will explain to you why. But then I have done 13 sessions now, and all the sessions after that, I started to feel so much better. And not just energy wise, but I hardly ever have to go get adjustments now. My neck doesn't hurt. I have 0 headaches. My gut issues are better. My brain fog has been great. I have so much energy, and it's kind of changed my life because it's nothing else has helped me. So while I'm really excited about all of these results and I want to keep doing it, the benefits are so much more than losing inches. So
Great, thanks. Thank you. All right. Okay. So, see if I can work this thing. Okay. So, while the Zarona laser is great at getting rid of fat, there's a whole lot more to it than that. I went to a seminar in Denver in September, and I take any chance I can get to go to Colorado. And I was at the seminar. I got the opportunity to sit under the VZ8 laser, and I was laying there and I felt, my skin felt tightening a little bit. That's interesting. I don't normally feel with my handheld lasers, I don't normally feel that. And it was relaxing. And, I got up and we had a break and I went to the bathroom and I was like, I need to tighten my belt a little tighter. I just went, okay. So that night I go to bed and I slept for 9 hours, and it was just wonderful. And that's not normal for going to Colorado or Denver, at least for me. I mean, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, I'll wake up really early, it'll be trouble going back to sleep. And so I was feeling great. And so we're at the seminar, and our morning, they talked about the Zarona laser and mentioned how doctors across the country that were using it, some of the benefits that they were seeing with patients. And at that point, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I got to use this laser again. Where can I go to use this laser? And then I have a friend in Kentucky, and I could fly there and I could use it a couple times over the weekend and I could fly home. See, because subconsciously I was not letting myself, I wanted to buy one, but I didn't want to take that kind of a financial risk. And so basically, because there's kind of a conflict for me, because my office is Restore Health, and people associate me with restoring health through natural methods of chiropractic and energy testing and supplement protocols. And it's a big jump from fat loss to from Restore Health to fat loss, or the fat loss world. And so I got back to my practice, and a couple of the first people that I did my nutritional testing on, I'm feeling better and I really like what we're doing and I'm getting healthier, but I'm going on a cruise. Can you give me something to help me lose weight? And then I saw another lady, are we ready for the stuff that's going to help me lose weight? And so that just kind of sat in the back of my mind. And so I called my Erconia rep, who's in California, and I'd met her at the seminar. And I just said, can you send me some more information? I can go over it over the weekend. And I said, particularly the information from the doctors who are more functional medicine oriented and not just fat loss. And so she did, and sent me one of this slide here. And this guy is named Mando. I had to be really careful because I was getting ready for this talk and I kept calling him, Mondo, because of the full body deodorant. Anyway, he's a great, happy guy. Lost 20 pounds, a bunch of inches. But what just blew my mind is some of his blood work results before and after. I mean, they're just unfathomable. And, his triglycerides and cholesterol and even his blood sugar improved. And, he talked to his MD, said that there's no way that all this is from the med that he was on. And he had changed his diet and exercise a little bit, but at that point, those changes don't happen unless you're putting just an astronomical amount of energy into the body, and if the body's using it to heal. And so at that point, I said to myself, okay, if I can help people lose inches of fat and put that kind of healing energy into their bodies, then I'll take the jump. And so I signed on the dotted line and was going to get the laser, but I wasn't out of the woods yet, because I can't get excited about, I can't talk about, I can't promote anything that I haven't had a great experience with. And so from September to January, you have to remember there's Thanksgiving and there's Christmas. And so 19.6, or actually 19.7 as of today, pounds, and it's not all about weight, okay? I don't even know how, but body fat went down 3.2%, and there's an extrapolation from body composition testing that visceral fat is really bad fat, and that went down 2. And so I did my blood work, and in October, my total cholesterol was 232. In January, a week ago, it went down to 195, so it dropped 37 points. My HDL, or good cholesterol, went up 5 points. My LDL cholesterol calculation was 171, it dropped to 128, so it improved 43 points. That's the bad cholesterol went down. And my total cholesterol to HDL ratio went from normal risk of heart issues to half risk of heart issues just in a few months. And so, part of me is like, I really wanted 20 pounds, but the other part of me is, how did that happen? Because, I have a little dog at home, and she's sitting at the door wondering where I am. She's 6.5 pounds. So I lost 3 of my little dog, or like a 20-pound weight. And so a couple things to point out about the weight, okay? This was right after Memorial Day, and we had a family birthday party, and it was group birthdays, and there was Raising Cane's with all the salt, and I got to pick the dessert. And I'm like, well, why don't we get a Godiva chocolate cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory? I had no idea. I'd eaten a different kind of chocolate cheesecake. This one was just so rich. Anyway, so I had food reasons that I was the heaviest I've ever been, okay? But I was getting ready to go hiking with my son after this trip to Colorado. We were gonna meet there and go on a hike. And so I'd been using the intermittent training bike, and my leg strength was like personal record. I mean, I was strong and in shape. So some of it, a little bit of it might have been muscle. But I have been monitoring my body composition over the past 4 to 5 years, and I've seen what changes it, okay? And it was my thought that, as I detoxified and as I worked out, that I would lose fat, okay? That's the heaviest I ever was. I never lost fat until I got the Zarona, until I started using it. And so, a couple of things from my experience about, how to get results like that. One thing I will point out, that I mainly just focus on moving my body after the sessions. And I also did some therapy on the Vibe plate, which I'm training my balance, because I had a car accident a few years ago, and I'm still trying to get that all back right. But if I exercised, if I strength trained, if I did more intense exercise, I would have lost more, okay? There's a couple things that I needed to, I'm just grab my thought here. Okay. The one thing I noticed right away is that I got results right away, which is really encouraging and motivating. And then the Zarona gave me the energy to actually do the things that help it work. And so what I have found is that lack of energy is a real reason, that people are stuck and that the body doesn't let go of fat. And you know, I was doing all sorts of great things, and yet I was as heavy as I've ever been, and I was stuck. And so it's the lack of energy is true on multiple levels, because you need energy to exercise, you know, and you even need energy to make good choices. It's sure a lot easier for me, but what it comes down to it is that people's bodies just don't have the energy, or the body doesn't want to put the energy into really getting the fat loss process going. And so the reason the Zarona works so well is it addresses that issue. And so keys to success with the Zarona, okay? I have a fat loss acceleration lymphatic boost thing that we're gonna demonstrate later that we do right after using the Zarona Light. Cherish the 3-day window. You know, the 3 days where your lymphatic system has got the fat in it, it needs to move. So move your body, okay? Don't binge. I mean, the big rules is I just slowed myself down on food. And if you want to be an overachiever, you want to have even more success, you just eat less and cut carbs. And that's a lot of what I did. The last thing is don't sabotage your days off. You have the 3-day window, then you have 4 other days. And just don't undermine yourself. I found the once a week is the ideal frequency because it's often enough that you know you're coming back and you think about it. But it's not so long, or it's not so frequent that it just, twice a week, I don't think you get the value. You know, you can maximize each treatment if you do it once a week. You have time to fully drain your lymphatic system. And even because you're gonna have, one of the things that I noticed is to move my body and to move my lymphatics, I went home and did yoga, okay? And I don't just sit in positions for a long time. I kind of race through them and just see what my flexibility's like and move my body. And it's just kind of my core work. And you know, I hadn't done yoga for 4 or 5 months. And I started going through the routine. Normally I go through like stuff on my stomach, and then it's, you know, I get tired because it moves energy, you know, but I'd use the laser and I'm like, okay, I'll do the stuff on my back, I'll do the stuff on my stomach, I'll do the stuff sitting up, and noticeable, you know, increase in energy. So, all right, I do a lot of things in my office, and you know, people can be complicated, and you know, the Zarona just works, but there are other areas that, you know, for moving fluid around, I've tested a lot of different electrolytes, and I've got a sea mineral product that, you know, can help get, your body needs to be able to move fluids in order to detoxify and for your lymph system to move. So sometimes that can be indicated. There can be emotional issues with anything where we're stuck and we have trouble moving forward. But there are these uncut flower remedies that just neutralize a lot of negativity that holds us back, and we can energy test for those and see where you're stuck. The biofield testing for nutritional support is where I just identify through energy testing how the body's stressed, and then figure out what will help the body adapt. And so, you know, if you do a Zarona package, or if you're trying to, I mean, what we're gonna do, I mean, I'm gonna find out what your goals are, and if you're stuck, we'll find answers. And I get more of a, well, feel better about, you know, solving difficult or almost unsolvable problems than I do about just, you know, seeing a bunch of people. So, all right, this gets fun to talk about. Decrease toxic load, okay? When your body stores toxins in fat, a lot of the time is the favorite place to put it. And so as you lose fat, you're gonna decrease your toxic load. toxins in the body also cause the body to keep inflammation. And on the inflammation note, when I started the Zarona, my stomach, upper stomach was just extra sensitive to touch, and that went away over time. Improved gut health, you've got a ton of energy just blasting your gut, which helps healing, but it's the 405 nanometer wavelength is antifungal, it's antiviral, and it's antibacterial. So it's gonna tamp down the bad bugs, okay? It's also a biofilm buster, okay? Biofilms are like that napkin, you know, or a blanket that covers up the bugs, parasites or bacteria, and how they hide. And so, you know, what happened with Steph, who was here, the reason that her body wigged out, you know, I've extrapolated that we started busting some biofilms. And I told her we poked the bear, we nailed it, and we did some testing. We gave her some anti-parasitic stuff. And as she said, she's better than ever. But, you know, none of that stuff was in her, you know, in her abdomen. I mean, all of her symptoms were other parts of the body. And so when we get to increased energy, there's a super cool thing that when you load the body up with energy, the body has the ability to shunt that energy to other parts that need it. And we'll see more of that later in testimonials, but they're called traveling mitochondria. And, you know, all I know is you can put energy in one place in the body, it'll use it other places if it needs to. So when you decrease the fat, you do Zarona sessions, you decrease inflammation. The Zirconia lasers have been approved for chronic pain, FDA approved for a long time, okay? So it makes sense that chronic pain goes away. And you can see improvements in blood work. It's gonna vary depending on a person's, you know, situation. Okay, this is a different way to say a lot of the same stuff, but you're gonna see some buzzwords on there: Lyme, COVID, mold, autoimmune, neuropathy. The Zarona laser doesn't cure anything, but it loads the body up with a tremendous amount of healing energy. It supports healing of about anything, but it doesn't cure anything. So, I had one of my former employees brought her dog. Actually, she rented one of my lasers and lasered her dog before its ACL and like several things wrong with it. I mean, the totally blown knee. Lasered it before and then lasered after, and the veterinarian was like, didn't know what she was doing because it improved so much. It was pretty cool. It's fun to be a part of that. All right, so before we get to that, all right, when I started the Zarona, I needed to lose fat in my belly, and when I would do yoga, I couldn't even you know, feel my abs, let alone see them. And so I'm just brainstorming, what can we do to really just get the lymphatics going after using the laser? And so I developed this protocol combining a couple things that has just worked better than I could imagine. And so anybody who's got fairly good balance and would like to be a volunteer and help me demonstrate this. Anyone?
Debbie.
Anyone? Okay. Oh, you blew it. I was going to say Bueller. Okay, come on up. I didn't say. We do have prizes. Okay, will you stand right up here?
Okay.
Okay, and just face this way. Well, actually, that's fine. Great. I love it. All right. So, as this is PEMF therapy. As Dr. Vaughn said, I've had this she didn't say I've had this for a long time, but I have because I'm an early adapter. Okay, so you don't have a pacemaker, right?
No.
Okay, will you hold this on your stomach for me?
Okay.
All right, so pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. And it pulses a magnetic field into the body to promote healing. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and start it up. Okay. Now you're going to feel a pulsing in your abdomen. You can tell me if it gets too strong, but most people can crank it all the way up and it's not a problem. Are you doing okay?
Yep.
Okay. Tell me if it's too much. They said it shouldn't be. Okay, can you feel that in your stomach muscles?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's not electrical stim, it's the magnetism. Okay, now I'm gonna sneak right back here. Okay, just got your balance?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna turn on the vibe plate. Okay, now it's very important. I want you to repeat after me, okay? My lymphatics are moving.
My lymphatics are moving.
Oh, you're a good sport. I was just doing that for you. So can you feel that that's doing something?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's even, I can feel it in your head. It's vibrating. So you do the laser, and that's light energy, okay? Then we got magnetic energy and the mechanical energy, and it really gets your lymphatics going, and it wakes up your abs a little bit too. So I'll go ahead and turn you off here.
Dr. Newman, that is awesome. Just so you guys know, very few, I don't know any doctor.
I don't know anybody that's doing that.
Interesting. When you
Okay,
stop.
wait. Yeah, just careful as you step down. But I have a gift for you. Okay, this is a lymphatic brush with copper in it from Therasage and my friend Robbie. So
Okay.
that'll move your lymphatic system. Okay, now we have one more demonstration that's kind of fun. You can think about it if you want to volunteer for this one. When I signed on the dotted line and got my laser, shortly thereafter, I woke up at 3 a.m. and with ideas and my mind was racing. You know, how in the world am I going to explain how this works? And I had a bunch of ideas, and one of those we'll do now, but it's a lot like an elementary science project, okay? But I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be cool. And does anyone want to help me out here? You? Okay. Well, I would trust you with my teeth, so I'll trust you with my laser. Okay. All right, I got to get ready. I wasn't quite. There we go. Okay, so let's see, I think I'm going to stand back here, okay? I'm going to have you just come from over here so that we can get a good video of it. All right, so the important thing, these are very expensive, so hang on to it. And just don't shine it in anybody's eyes, okay? And you're my friend, so don't screw around, just do what I ask you to. All right, so the laser is on, okay? So what I want you to do is these water balloons are our fat cells, okay? They're not actual size or color. Okay, so shine it on the red one, okay? There we go. Just a second. Okay, I want tell people what you see there.
He used a lot of strength to try to pop that, and it took a lot to pop it.
And you are screwing around. So does it look like a Bellagio fountain?
Correct.
Okay, so what do you think that represents? What's coming out of the water balloon?
Fat.
Yeah, you see it draining?
Mm-hmm.
It's going like crazy?
Correct.
All right, so the laser opens the transient pore in the fat cells. The fat drains into the lymphatics, and it'll be going for a while there. We can go ahead and shut that off. And then, what do we need to do to get the lymphatics going? We need to move the lever and drain the fat.
Right.
All right. Okay, very good. Thanks,
Yeah. That was easy.
Dr. Sartori. Oh,
No, I don't need.
yeah. Well,
Give it to someone else.
okay. All right. Okay. we're gonna finish up with this testimonial, and this is a different kind. This is a lady, travels to see me from Omaha. I've treated her for a long time. She's struggled a lot. And I had way more words, but my wife said, you can't have that many words on a slide, so I'm gonna have to fill in some of them. But she reported after 6 laser sessions, immediate energy increase and lasting increase in energy. The heightened thinking, she also had decreased brain fog, which is what people are familiar with. Heaviness in liver and heaviness in legs and so forth, gone. Well, what is heaviness? It's a lack of energy. So the laser flooded her body with energy and it doesn't feel heavy anymore, okay? Decrease in knee pain. You know, we didn't laser her knee, but that's that traveling energy that I'm talking about. She told me today as I talked to her on the phone that she would do an activity or work and then she'd have to sit down and rest, you know, due to pain and fatigue, and that she wasn't gonna plant a garden this year, you know, giving that up. But, you know, she has more energy now, so she's gonna do it. All right, so able to sit for an extended period of time, you know, that's endurance. What's that about? Energy, okay? Down a dress size, loss of fat underarms. We didn't laser her arms. We can do that. We can do legs, we can do arms, but again, it's that traveling mitochondria and just the energy travels through the body. Lower morning blood sugar, there's more to it than that because there were numbers. And it's still not great, but her morning blood sugar was 250 and it has dropped to 170 after 6 laser sessions. Okay, there was other information there, but that's the gist of it, okay? Energy to watch her grandson, okay? She said it was for 11 hours and she had energy left over afterwards, okay? So it gives you an idea of what potential there is. And honestly, the more messed up a person is, the more that you can, benefits you can see.